Hi, I'm Chris,
Hi, I'm Randall.
and welcome to Arts
Arts
and
and Entertainment
Entertainment
with
with
Chris and
Chris and
Randall.
Randall. Oh, we're
Awesome.
getting better at this. Yeah, awesome. Hey, everybody, welcome. Hope you're in a safe, warm, protective, happy environment, either inside, outside. Welcome to our show. Randall, we are going to have a discussion today for about 30 minutes or so. And what is our topic?
Topic today is science fiction TV shows that we are watching, have watched, enjoyed.
Well, and you might be watching too, or you might be able to watch. Yeah, you did something really neat. Well, you know what? Before we get to that, I'm going to ask you. We have a list from IMDb that you're awesome. You were able to get about the top shows that people are watching. But before we get to it, just before we even know that, is there a science fiction show right now you're watching?
Well, of course, I'm watching Westworld season 3. That's that's being aired right now. Um,
I remember watching season one with you, and man, we talked about it all the time.
Season 1 was great. There's a few science fiction properties out there where it's like they do that first season and it's pretty good, and then after that, it's like, why do they keep doing this? Like one of the classic examples is Handmaid's Tale, where
No, I like Handmaid's Tale. That show's awesome. I've watched
oh,
every season, and it's only getting better.
well, you're wrong, but
It's not falling that hard. That should be coming out soon, I think. But I bring me up to speed with
Handmaid's
Westworld
Tale is
because
a
I
classic.
didn't watch season. Before we get to Handmaid's Tale, you were talking about
Well, the reason
Westworld.
I say
So
it's a classic example is because the first season was based on the book, and then after that, they're just
yeah,
making stuff up. They're just pulling stuff out of their butt.
no, she's still a consultant on it, and
Okay,
it's a good.
true.
I like it. I think
Yeah,
it's a
the
pretty
author's
good
still alive.
show. It's not. We can talk about that in a
It's not
moment,
too.
but
It's
I'm
not
just
too
gonna
bad, but
say,
I think the
how
first season
is season three compared to season two or season one?
Westworld. See, the thing about Westworld is, uh, okay, I know what they did. Westworld is the kind of show where after you watch the first season, you know what they did. What they did is, they basically stretched out the story of Westworld, which Michael Crichton. I think Michael Crichton, did he direct?
Yeah, he wrote it. He wrote the
But didn't he
book.
direct the movie too? I mean, I
Yes,
can't
he
remember.
did. He wrote
So
and directed. Yeah.
yeah, Michael Crichton, amazing, underrated artistic genius, right? So anyway, he so they took his story and characters and plot from Westworld, the book and the movie, and Crichton was able to do like the whole story in like 1.5 hours, right? And I know what they did. They they stretched it out into a whole season, right? That's what they did. And you know what? When you're watching it and you don't know what's going on, because they keep everything shrouded in mystery, and uh, they don't tell you everything, and everything's a mystery, and they put in all this little bits of philosophy to explain behaviors, and it's fun. It's like it's the whole concepts and ideas, Crichton's concepts and ideas stretched out into hours and hours, and it's fun. It was a good watch. But then after they get out of that season, it's like, what's going on? Nothing's going on. That's the problem. I mean, season 3 is like, it's almost an abortion. I mean,
So
uh,
season three worse than season two?
season 1 of Westworld is
No, I
great
said
because
season one
it's
is great. I only saw season one. I've never seen season two. Uh, but I was curious. I mean, is season three better than season two, or is it just on a downward spiral?
oh yeah, it's not good. It's bad. It's getting worse. Of course.
Okay.
The story is getting thinner. The characters are getting thinner. The only good thing about season 3, I'll give it this, is they're giving the actors and actresses much more to do. It's like Evan Rachel Wood. It's kind of interesting because Evan Rachel Wood, in the first season, she's a cowgirl. She's on the frontier. She's a
Right.
little
Yeah.
house
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
prairie, and she has to play like an innocent little country girl, right? And she's
Well, it
great,
gets kind of a little intense as the story goes, but
right?
yeah.
But that's mostly her character, right? And then now in season 3, should I spoil it for you and everybody? I don't know.
No, 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 no.
Well, she's
I
a
mean,
totally
I've
different
seen
person. She's a totally different character. So
I've seen the trailer, so I have a rough sense of where you're headed with that. Just an interesting thing, Michael Crichton, he wrote a novel he made into a screenplay. If you can find the novel, it's really expensive for Westworld. He even made a sequel called Future World, but it was influenced by his trip to Disneyland. And I think it was Pirates of the Caribbean and just the animatronics. And he was wondering about what would happen if you had like an evil Disneyland. He also would write Jurassic Park, which is
Right.
variation on this theme. There was I looked it up, in the late 70s, there was a Westworld TV show, the premise
Yes.
of which were the robots from that world of the amusement park escaped and now we're infiltrating the highest piece of government. And
So
I
they
never
just
saw it,
so
but
they
you can
basically
find
just
it probably
copied
on
it.
YouTube. No, but I don't know. It's a tough one. But so that's what you've been hate watching.
You know,
What if?
it has its it has its moments. You know, another good thing I'll say about it, it's not a spoiler alert, is it is scored wall to wall like an old Hollywood movie. You know,
Yeah,
it's music wall to wall, but it's electronic music. It sounds great. I really like it. I love it.
isn't it the
On my
people behind?
6.1
Isn't it
surround sound
the?
home theater, it sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
HBO does do these beautiful productions. I mean, I would certainly recommend season one, and I guess eventually
Yes.
I'll have to sit through seasons 2 and 3 in the hopes that there's a good season 4. I've been doing the opposite. I've been going to the very bottom of time. I was always a big fan of Doctor Who, the original Doctor Who, not the new Doctor Who, and the Doctor Who from the 60s and 70s. There was a writer on Doctor Who named Terry Nation, and Terry Nation invented the Dialects, the Cybermen, and a few other very important things. I'm sure someone's going to say, "Oh, you forgot to mention he invented this or that," but he's one of the most influential of the original Doctor Who writers, and he came up with a series in England in the early 70s called Blake's Seven. I
Oh
don't
yes,
want to
I tried to
give
watch that before.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, especially because the show goes on a fascinating journey. But if you like old school Doctor Who from the 60s and 70s and early 80s, I would strongly recommend you at least give Blake Seven a shot. You can find it on YouTube. Just type in Blake's Seven. I use the number seven, but I think if you spelt it as seven, you would still be able to find it. It's what they call space opera. It has a lot of the Doctor Whovian elements of, you know, repressive regimes, rebels, mind control, space as a business place. I mean, in many ways, it is a product of the 70s. It is very much a product of a low budget BBC style of aesthetic.
You know what?
Completely the opposite of Westworld, for that matter.
Can I
Uh,
jump in here?
but go for it.
I just want to say that I tried to watch it in the past because I know that because of everything you said. Um, and so I think it also has a very high IMDb score, if I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
correctly, and which is how I base all my watching. But I found it kind of slow.
Well, all of those things, even the Doctor Who's of that era, are considerably slower going than what we're used to
But
because they're
yeah,
just not cranking up the action like we're used to.
yeah,
There's
there's
a
not much
lot
going
of
on. But
plot
right.
and character. Go
But
ahead.
I will say about it, I love the way it looked. I mean, that low budget 70s aesthetic,
Yeah,
sci-fi
it is
aesthetic.
good.
I mean, they did it perfectly with
But the
I mean, am I
storytelling
crazy?
is great. No, the storytelling is great because they're not afraid of killing people. You don't know who's going to live. You don't know who's going to die. You don't know if a character is going to make the morally correct choice because there's somewhat of a hippie influence again, even in this show about what is the right choice. I always liked how many of the episodes of Terry Nation's Doctor Who, the Doctor and the companion would arrive in a planet or sometime in the future, get involved with two warring factions of a society, and by the end of like 8 episodes, everyone would be dead but the Doctor and his companion. Terry Nation stories have, I'm not going to say they're cynical or nihilistic, but they can get very dark very fast and then become very charming again. They're very distinctive. And if you are a big fan of that level of Doctor Who, at least give it a try, but you have to watch it in sequence because the story arcs are very, very, no, you cannot watch one episode without knowing what happened in all the other episodes before it, especially because unlike Doctor Who, which has a consistent plot, the plot of Blake 7 is shifting and shifting and shifting.
Yeah, when you were talking about it being dark and irreverent, did you say irreverent? I'm not sure, but cynical.
Yeah, and irreverent, yeah.
You know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of DR and Quinch, which I've told you about in the past. That series of comic books by Alan Moore. DR and Quinch are like these characters that Alan Moore invented. It's like a science fiction series. It's about these two aliens that have great alien superpowers, and they go around screwing stuff up all over the universe, including on Earth. And it's hilarious. I mean, it's irreverent.
Well,
it's
Moore
cynical,
grew up
it's
in
dark.
England watching Doctor Who, and
no one's
Blake
ever
7,
made it.
so.
No one's ever made. Oh, really?
Oh yeah, of course. He has cited those influences. Yes.
Well, it totally has that tone. It's really and they're fun. They're hilarious. I love them. They're some of my favorite, but I don't know if anybody will ever make them into a series or whatever.
Well,
Maybe Disney should make them.
Maybe should we look at the list that you found of?
Okay, yeah. So you want to talk about the IMDb top 250 sci-fi TV shows?
Let's look at least a few of them. Let's look at number one because I haven't seen number one.
I haven't seen it either. So Rick and Morty.
And everyone is telling me to Rick and Morty by Dan Harmon. I've seen every episode of Community. I am, as a hobby right now, I am looking at the Dan Harmon story wheel. You know that one? If you guys know the hero's journey, it's a modification of the hero's journey. You can Google Dan Harmon story wheel. And I've been watching every episode of Community from the pilot in order of sequence to watch how his story wheel works, just so I can teach myself the Harmon approach to storytelling. There's a lot of science fictional elements in Community, and they also reference Doctor Who, just while we're at it. But I've heard good things about Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I've heard it's good. I haven't seen it. I'll say I'm not a giant Dan Harmon fan like everybody else on the planet, but let's go on. Number 2 is Full Metal Alchemist.
Never seen
anime.
it.
I tried to watch it before, it's Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which I think is like not the original, but apparently they're a good series. I haven't watched them yet. There is an anime on here that I really like. It's not toward the
We'll
top.
get to it soon, I hope.
The next one, number 3, is Firefly. Have you seen Firefly?
Okay, Firefly confuses me because here's the deal. I did watch the pilot. I've watched a couple of the episodes. I'm a big fan of Joss Whedon.
I'm not.
I like
I'll tell the truth.
Well, I'm telling you what I like. I like Joss Whedon. I like Ron Glass. I like, was it Adam Baldwin? I like all the actors on the show. I like the writer on the show. I like the idea of a space western that looks like a western.
Mm-hmm.
And I have watched a lot of episodes, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out why I don't like that show.
Oh, yeah, I don't like it either.
I can't explain why.
You know what's? I haven't watched all of it.
Love that show.
It's kind of boring. Yeah. The characters aren't that interesting. It doesn't look that good either. Firefly. The look of it is it's not very space westerny.
It looks kind of just like a generic.
But you know what?
It looks like
funny?
A science fiction show that was on TV 10, 15 years ago.
Right. It looks like a generic sci-fi show.
High key, a lot of warehouses.
What's the perfect example of a generic sci-fi show that's just like not a lot of thought went into it?
Andromeda.
I don't know that one. I don't think.
Anything that was made in Canada between the 1990s and the early 2010s.
I'm trying to think of a perfect.
In Canada.
I'm trying to think of one now.
There's always going to be one scene where they're clearly.
Most science fiction shows are labors of. Most science fiction shows are labors of love, and it really shows. I think that's something that people key into on these science fiction shows.
So, but if you like Firefly, apparently so.
Well, you know what? Let me just add something, Chris, because you talked about how Firefly is intended to be a space western. You know what a really good space western is? And we have the great The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay, it's great.
But it's it fits the. It's probably going to be on this list.
Who's the guy? Who's the director? John. Who's that guy?
Favreau.
Yeah, Favreau. The great genius Favreau.
Iron Man.
He basically invented the MCU. I mean, Hollywood should be kissing that guy's butt every day. I mean,
I think they are right now. He's doing all those live action Disney.
And The Mandalorian is really the first really good Star Wars series. I mean, they should. He's
so tell me a bit about The Mandalorian, since I do not have.
Well, it's the genres of science fiction and Western are a natural. I mean, there was an old series of movies called Oblivion. There's a B movies back in the olden days. It was like 20, 30 years ago. That were space westerns, sci-fi westerns. There was also Thundar the Barbarian. That was kind of like a medieval.
Are you talking about Oblivion, the movie with Tom Cruise?
No. This is like way back. This is like a B movie.
Good. By the way, Oblivion, Tom Cruise, sci-fi. If you can watch it,
it's good.
It's a really great film.
But yeah, the space western genre, mashing up western and sci-fi.
I mean, that was Gene Roddenberry said he wanted. That was his vision of Star Trek, and that
I don't think
he wanted to do that.
I don't think it was. It ended up being that, but
I mean,
it's funny because
said.
The funny thing is, I think
wagon train.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, I think the reason he said that is because the western genre back then is kind of like how we look at science fiction today. Because the western genre back then.
Star Trek really is a Western. I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think that it's a Western in the way that, the wagon trails were going west. They were exploring the new world, the new territories. Well, and Jim Kirk is very much a cowboy iconic type.
No, I see what you're saying, but I think that the conception of the Western genre has like changed. I think back then, like if you watch an old episode, I haven't seen a lot, but if you watch an old episode of like, God, what the hell is that? The Family on the Range show. What is that? Bonanza.
I don't know.
If you watch an old episode like Bonanza or something, it feels almost like a Star Trek episode. Some of those episodes because they're self-contained. There's a philosophical basis. There's a philosophical argument encapsulated within the episode. It's like kind of Ayn Randy. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, I mean, Westerns were. Let's take a moment out.
They're analogies. They're analogies of things going on in our civilization. But that is what the science fiction genre has become.
But let's take that moment out for just a second and say there is a whole genre. Was it Isaac Asimov who would write? There's a whole genre of space Western, both animation and literature, film and TV. It's been around for a long time. The cross breeding of those two genres.
Well, what do you think are some good examples?
Actually, season 1 of Westworld is an excellent example of that, and the movie Westworld is an excellent example of that. I think there are definitely episodes of Star Trek that, if you look at the Western more about, say, sometimes the cowboy, but I really think more of like just the Union Army and the pacification of Indians or wagon trails moving out west, that it is about communities that are coming to a new land.
Battlestar Galactica?
Battlestar Galactica.
That's, the original Battlestar Galactica. That's like a perfect example.
Lauren Green, who came from Bonanza.
It's basically like Moses in space, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's, again, they did
or the wagon train. They
used a lot of the same sets that Westerns were filmed on. They were popular during a period of time when Westerns were popular. There's a Western aesthetic, but Lauren Green was the patriarch on Bonanza, and he is the patriarch on the original Battlestar Galactica.
Well, there's a sense.
And there's very much a cowboy quality in Starbuck and Apollo on those shows.
Okay, so I guess what I want to say is there used to be like with old Westerns, there was this era of Westerns where there was this idea that we're going to use the Western genre to explore, to make analogies to things going on in our broader world, right? It's analogous, it's you're simplifying major problems to explore them, and that is what science fiction has become, I think, and good science fiction and Westerns have stopped being that. Westerns have become like very genre, they become. A Western is now, it's a guy in a hat and a gun and a shootout. And you know what I mean? It's like.
Well, Westerns have become for the last 40.
But they used to be like science fiction
years.
Is my point.
The 1970s, Westerns have become revisionist. So now whenever you see a Western, it's almost always, we're going to make everything gray and dark. And we're going to.
Well, they're almost a common. Right. They're almost a commentary on our civilization now, right? Every Western has to be Republican bad, right? That's
death of heroism, death of iconism.
America bad, colonialism bad, right? That's every Western has to be now, right?
If you look at the Western, I mean, I think there's just overlap between the Western and science fiction and the idea of exploring new territories, charting out new lands. And the great frontier of the 19th century was the American West. And people felt in the 1960s that the new frontier would be space, that we will go out into space like we went 100 years beforehand, and we would colonize, we would build territories.
You know what? Another good
It
example.
hasn't happened yet.
You just reminded me
But
another good example of the mashup, Western sci-fi mashup, is Lost in Space. Probably like the original and the
again,
Netflix
made
remake.
during a period of time where the Western was popular. I never saw the remake. Is it any good?
On
It looks
Netflix.
so damn PC.
You know what?
Yeah.
I've watched the whole thing. I think. I think there's 3 seasons. I'm not sure, but I think I've watched them
Yeah, I
all.
think so.
And
Yeah.
it's it's fun. It's fun. They're well done. It looks great. The acting is superb. I mean,
Really, it just looks so like PC. I don't know why. I just feel
yeah,
like
it is PC. It's a family show. You know, it's a family
that is
show.
definitely, there's a genre sci-fi I will not touch is PC sci-fi.
It's not edgy, I'll tell you that, okay? But
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun. It's definitely like a mashup. I would rather watch. I think The Mandalorian is like way
Yeah,
more
that's
worth your
good.
time if you're gonna watch some kind of Western sci-fi mashup. I mean, The
It's
Mandalorian.
available on the Disney Channel. I will have to next time I have the opportunity to be at some place with a Disney Channel. So we just do the top 10 on this list just so we can
Yeah.
get through
Okay.
it.
So let's see. I think we've already gone right about
We hit
15 minutes.
Firefly,
Okay.
number
So
4. We've got Batman the
Batman
Animated
the
Series.
Animated Series that
I
aired
have
from 92 to 95.
I love it, but I have this weird thing about science fiction and comic books not being one and the same. Like, I like Batman, but Batman doesn't get his powers through alien technology or any science fictional element. Yeah, he'll go up against. No, normally he doesn't even go. He goes up against people with technology, but it's not a lot of sci-fi in Batman. That's cheap.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
But I would recommend it if you can watch it.
yeah, definitely. Sometimes you have to ask the question: is like, is this sci-fi or not? But I think Batman's definitely sci-fi because of all the weird gadgets he comes up with. That's what makes him sci-fi. Because
Ra's al Ghul lives forever. I get it. It's just whenever I see superheroes in this is just it's a pet peeve. The Twilight Zone.
I
Is
what?
number 5.
Okay, I want to say about Batman though is I watched it when it
Okay,
came
go
out.
ahead.
I loved it. It was huge when it came out. Everybody was
It's
watching it.
still running, and you can still watch it. I believe they're
They did a
actually
great
bringing it
job.
back
The people that made that
again.
did an incredible
Yeah.
job with that.
Oh, I'll take a moment then. While we're on the topic of Batman and science fiction, there is, and if you can find this on YouTube. It's called Born Under a Red Sun. It is absolutely science fictional.
I
It's
haven't
an
seen it.
animated DC film, which goes, what if Kal-El had landed in Soviet Russia and the Soviet Union in the late 30s and had become this great leader of the Soviet Union? And in that, there is a Batman, there is a Lex Luthor, and they just play out over a 40-year period what life would be like if Superman had been part of the Soviet Union. And it's fascinating. It's based on a graphic novel. I've read the graphic novel.
Yeah, I read the novel. It's really good.
It's a little different than the graphic novel. It's good science fiction. I don't really want to do too many spoilers on it, but anytime you deal with alternative history, even in a comic book universe, you get to see some very fun and interesting stuff. It's very edgy, very dark, which is my favorite kind
Chris,
of thing.
the basic idea is that instead of Superman landing in the beginning, instead of him landing in America as a baby, he lands in Russia as a baby, USSR as a baby. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so he becomes like the perfect Russian citizen, USSR citizen, instead of the perfect American citizen. And that's a fascinating idea because it says because it implies that his whole personality gets formed by some random chance event. And it's great.
And it's a great
idea.
There's still a Lex Luthor. There's still a Lois Lane. There's a Batman. There's other people. But again, you play out the way that would work out. It's good sci-fi. It's good alternative history.
All right, Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, definitely great for science fiction. Some really beautiful, pure science fictional stories. There's that one that takes place where a man is in exile in the desert on a planet, and they give him a woman robot played by a wonderful actress named Jean Marsh. That's a very good science fiction episode. They did some time travel episodes there.
This show came out in 1959. Okay, 1959, 1964. I mean, it's still influential. The CBS is making. I think is Jordan Peele in charge of new episodes right now on CBS Online.
Well. Yeah, and I think this is the fourth remake, because I know they remade the Twilight Zone in the 80s, And I remember about 10, 15 years ago in
Yeah,
the
I think you're
beginning of
right.
this century. So this is like now the fourth one. They're all interesting in their own way. I like watching the classic ones. Rod Serling, by the way, wrote the screenplay for the original Planet of the Apes.
Well, yeah, he was a great writer. He just wanted to be a writer. He was one of these guys that he was
Yeah.
a writer and he just wanted to write TV shows. He made his own TV show.
Richard Matheson, who was a writer on both the Rod Serling's Twilight Zone and Rod Serling's Night Gallery, he would go on to write the book that became Omega Man, I Am Legend. So, and his daughter would write E.T. So there's a lot of really good science fiction writers.
I Am Legend's a great short. It's a great short novel, by the way. It's one of the greatest horror novels ever, right? Wouldn't you say, Chris?
And on YouTube, you can watch the first adaptation of that with Vincent Price called The Last Man on Earth. And it's the closest version of the three versions to the Richard Matheson novel. It's a great novel. I would absolutely download it if you can. I Am Legend. Last Man on Earth, 1965, Vincent Price. 1975 would be the second remake with Charlton Heston, which is the Omega Man. And then, was that 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, that the Will Smith I Am Legend came out?
What, did you ask me a question? I was looking at the list.
Yeah. When did the last version of I Am Legend came out, the one with Will Smith?
Yeah, that was the Will Smith one. It's interesting because the ending of I Am Legend.
I like that one too.
That was not too bad.
All of them. No,
that was not too bad. But
good.
The interesting thing about that one is, the ending of I Am Legend like makes the whole story. I mean, I don't know if I want to reveal it, but they changed the ending because it's super dark.
Each ending has the book and all three films all have different endings.
The whole point of the book is the ending, and they changed the ending. So I don't know what to say. But anyway.
I mean, it's the same. Without giving us away a spoiler, each of the endings is a variation on a theme, but each one has a different. I like them all. Yeah, they're just really good.
It's the book. It's the greatest horror novel, greatest horror story ever written, probably. Okay, so let's go to Gravity Falls from 2012.
I've never seen
2016.
This.
Never seen. I think it's another anime. There's a lot of anime on this list, and I think I've only seen one of them.
No, I think it was live action. Gravity Falls.
No. There was a live action movie, but this is an animated show, I think.
Oh, never saw it. Cowboy Bebop. I saw one of them. But I don't remember much about it.
I tried to watch it. I think the Cartoon Network was showing it years ago, and I don't know. It's pretty slow moving.
Did you ever see The Promised Neverland?
No, I've never even heard of this. This is like running right now. I guess people really like it.
Wow.
I don't know what the hell it's about.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. That was a huge phenomenon on Netflix.
You can still watch it on Netflix, folks. There's
3 seasons. They're fun. They have a lot of elements that it's nostalgic. It takes place in the 80s. There's a little kid.
They did film a 4th season, which will drop sooner than later. So
it's gonna
some good news.
Drop.
Well, I saw the trailer for season 4, so I know that. I think they actually shot it before this all went down. Did you watch the 3rd season? I haven't seen it yet. Is any good?
Yeah, it's good.
It's okay, good.
It's a fun show. It's not a lot, heavy in the head. I mean,
yeah, it is. If you haven't seen it, I will say the first 2 seasons are very addictive. Great acting.
It borrows
Lots
a lot.
Of wonderful actors.
They borrow a lot from anime, from Akira, from Cold Wars type
80s
stuff.
Movies,
80s Cold War movies,
sci-fi, 80s horror, 80s teen comedies. It has a little bit of the John Hughes element in it. It has a bit of the John Carpenter element in it. Very charming actors, very good period stuff, because I was older than you during that period in history, so I can tell you that you got a lot of the small 80s. It's weird to recommend Stranger Things to people because I feel like you probably already had a million people recommend it. But
hey, Chris, did you play Dungeons and Dragons back in the day?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so did I. All right,
I grew up in the 1980s. How could I?
Well, I'll do you one better.
Look at this face. Does this not look like the face of someone who would have played Dungeons and Dragons as a teenager? Of course.
I played AD&D. I think that's
Advanced Dungeons. Oh,
yeah, I think that's after your time.
Did. No,
well, it doesn't exist anymore. Wizards of the Coast got rid of it. It's
really?
Yeah. Anyway,
they got rid of it. That's hard.
Yeah, they incorporated. They wanted to simplify the system, I think. Anyway,
we went through the top 10. I will say number 11, if you don't mind me mentioning.
Wait, let's go to the number 10, which I've seen, actually. It's an anime that I've seen. It's called One Punch Man. It is
What is One Punch
spectacular.
Man?
It is spectacular. It is well written. Most of these animes, the stories aren't tight. You know, I think just the Eastern aesthetic with storytelling, it's not as tight or plotty, you know. But One Punch Man is very plotty. It's very tight. It's very funny. It's about it's great. I think it's basically like The Office meets Dragon Ball Z. It's like,
okay.
I mean, it's like
okay.
It's like if Mike Judge made an anime. I mean, it's amazing. It's hilarious.
Well,
it's action.
You want to just quickly go through the second tier of 10s because there's some stuff we're talking about very quickly.
So number 11 is Black Mirror.
Okay, so I would say this,
which is very Twilight Zone influenced.
Yeah, 5 seasons. Is that right?
I don't know. They keep
4 seasons.
Shoving them out.
No, it's done. It stopped years ago. There is no more Black Mirror.
They're gonna make more.
Oh wait, Black Mirror. You're right. I've never seen it. I'm thinking of something totally different.
Wait, you've never seen Black Mirror on Netflix?
Nope.
Well, it started off on Netflix, but okay, you should watch it. It's like I
didn't like the pilots.
It's a heavily Twilight Zone influenced. It's anthology based. Anthology means every episode is like another different story. Okay, this next one's another anime, Steins Gate. Never heard of it.
Do you know anything about it?
No.
Then there's The Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, like I told you, it's like a Western sci-fi mashup. It's a 8.7, very high. Okay, let's go.
Justice League Unlimited. I've been watching this. I love it.
Really?
Same reason I love Batman. It's a very fanboy oriented. You get to see every minor and major DC superhero from the last 80 years, well, maybe the last 70 years, teaming up and having these wonderful self-contained stories. So yeah, if you like that kind of stuff, it's a lot of fun. I hear good things about the next one, Dark. Have you watched that?
No, I never heard of it. Is it German or something?
It's German. I think it's in season 3. It's called The German Stranger Things, and that is all I can tell you about it.
German Stranger Things? So it's like Stranger Things, but like more depressed.
80s. Like it takes place, I think, in the 80s part of it. Okay. Then there's The Boys. I
watched that. Yeah, and it's on Amazon.
I like it.
That is really good.
I like it. Season 2 is coming out very soon.
It's a Watchmen influenced comic book story.
Yeah.
Very good. Very great writing.
Yeah. Very violent.
If you want some violence, it's adult.
It is super violent. It is not for the faint of heart, but it's so pulpy and entertaining, and the acting is
great.
Great, yeah. If you like Watchmen, if you like your superheroes evil, if you like your world dark, and if you're a cynical person, this is your show. Next is Westworld, which we already talked about. Then after that, the modern Battlestar Galactica, which we strangely enough did not talk about, and
have you seen it? Okay, I haven't seen it.
Of course. Wait, whoa, you have? No. You've never seen the modern Battlestar Galactica?
I've tried watching a few times. I couldn't get into it.
Oh, man.
It's too slow for me.
You got to watch it.
Is it that good, really?
It's good until it jumps the shark. So it's good until the last season. And then the last season, it jumps hard. The final episode jumps hard. But even as bad as that is the case, it's Rick Berman and Brandon Braga, who both come from Star Trek. It's like a grittier version of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It is much darker, much more cynical. You really feel one thing that's missing from all of Star Trek, or except for the ones that were written by Brandon Braga and Rick Berman, is that it's a military organization. Whereas you really do feel like you are in a military-run organization. And it also really gives you a sense of what it would be like to have people traveling in space in a convoy. It's good. It's good acting, good writing, beautiful production design, very expensive stuff. This was HBO. So again, this same kind of treatment. Now, was it HBO? No, maybe not. It was sci-fi. Anyway, it was filmed in Canada, but it doesn't have a cheap Canadian sci-fi look.
See,
because they were very ingenious when they
actually, you know what? That's another thing. I never liked the look of Battlestar Galactica. I think it is kind
you don't like the handheld
Canadian
camera?
Sci-fi. You know what?
No,
Battlestar Galactica is like a good example of a generic sci-fi.
No, just the opposite. No, you should really watch it.
All right.
It's just the opposite. And every way, shape, or form. I was complimenting that they could film it in Canada and yet it can rise above it.
See, the original Star Trek never felt like a militaristic ship because Captain Kirk was a cool, swinging '60s ship captain, right?
Right. Whereas this one really just feels like you're on a. Well, I can't remember whether it was Rick Berman or Brandon Braga, but one of them had been in the Coast Guard when they were very young, and they did understand Navy regulations. Gene Roddenberry had been in the Navy, and this is one of the things that really distinguishes American sci-fi from English sci-fi. Is English sci-fi, American sci-fi is almost always a military or paramilitary organization in space. NASA or the Federation or some kind of variation of that. Our astronauts are always captains and lieutenants or colonels. Whereas in British sci-fi, it's always he's an eccentric time traveler or some variation of that. You were saying.
Well, I was just going to ask, how far should we go down this list?
I think we should move off the list now because I think we should just talk about random sci-fi shows that we've been watching beyond that.
Okay, let's talk about Star Trek and the Orville, because I love the Orville. And
which Star Treks do you want to talk about? I've been watching a lot of the original series, which I think is available.
The original series is superb.
Is that on Amazon now? I think it's on either Amazon or Netflix. Forgive me, Google it. But I'm really enjoying that. And you can watch Next Generation, get this, on both Amazon and Netflix.
Hey, you're a fan of the animated show Star Trek 2, right?
Yeah.
That was really good.
They brought in a box set of that. Yeah. Is that available on? It's available, I think, either on Amazon or on Hulu.
It's somewhere.
And that was pretty cool because that one had real science fiction writers. James Doohan, who played Scotty, did the voices of a lot of other characters.
I think in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, it's better than the original series.
Well, there is an episode of it where they show you young Spock. That's now part of like canon in the Spock trilogy. But all of those, whether it's Voyager or Enterprise or DS9, they're all available to stream.
Yeah, and I think the modern
one of the services, and it's fun to watch them. I find.
Have you seen the new Star Trek? What is it? Star Trek Discovery.
Picard.
Oh, Picard. Yeah, I haven't started watching Picard yet.
I saw the pilot episode. I know you can right now get a free month of CBS Online. So if you guys want to watch that, it's available on CBS Online. Same with Star Trek Discovery. I did watch most of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. It was okay. I don't know if the modern Star Trek really speaks to me.
Yeah, something that the old Star Trek, the original series, and the cartoon too, the animated series captured was this idea that every episode is about some kind of philosophical idea, right? It's an analogy. It's real science fiction where it's like they're grappling with ideas and concepts, right? Fleshed out.
Well, I mean, it's certainly possible that even the newer version of Star Trek are doing what the old versions of Star Trek do, which is hold a mirror to our society, but at an odd angle, so we can see it refracted through science fiction. I think a show that does that better is the Orville. I think the Orville,
right? That's what I wanted to bring up.
The best version of contemporary Star Trek.
The Orville,
Star Trek.
Totally agree. And I love the Orville. I love every episode is about some kind of concept or idea. It's I mean, it's great.
The characters do feel like they're drawn from life. They do seem realistic. The captain is not a highly competent man. His team of people are good at one thing and terrible at something else. Every character on that show has great flaws as well as strengths. It's not a very dark show per se, or a very edgy show, but it does seem like a very human show, which is what I like about the original Star Trek. And also people who, Brandon Braga, I believe, is an executive producer on that. Jon Favreau is an executive producer on that.
Really?
Shot the pilot, yeah. And number of Star Trek actors and writers have worked on that show, either on the camera or Jonathan Frakes has directed several episodes.
Wait, Favreau directed the first episode of the Orville?
Yep, and he's one of the executive producers on the show, along with Brandon Braga, to bring our conversation full circle.
Hollywood should build a statue of Jon Favreau. I mean, they need to worship it.
I know people who went to high school with him, and I know he actually did play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. So again,
Well, it's funny because every time you look at a Favreau project, the tone is perfect. Because so many things the tone is off.
Apparently, you have not seen Chef.
You know what? I've seen Chef, and I think he accomplished what he needed to do, what he wanted to do on that. You didn't like Chef?
Did you film a love scene with Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah, well, obviously,
I guess that was the point of Chef.
He wanted to have a love scene with Scarlett Johansson. Let's be honest. That's what he wanted to do on that. But no, but I think he accomplished what he wanted to do with Chef. I mean, it's not going to be for everybody. It's not like a mass market. It's an indie. I mean,
the reason why we can mention Chef in a science fiction episode is the idea of him with Scarlett Johansson and having been married to what's her name from Family, Mia. I cannot pronounce her name. The Colombian actress who is on Modern Family. Sofia Varga is his ex-wife.
Vergara?
And yes, the idea that he could have been married to Sofia Varga and now is sleeping with Scarlett Johansson, that is science fiction. And that is why you can mention Chef. That's my cold diss on Jon Favreau after praising him as a filmmaker.
Hey, he doesn't care. Okay,
I'm sure
I don't think he cares.
Actually,
I don't even know why he keeps working. He should just
the Orville
retire.
And I would recommend it. There's 2 seasons are available right now on Hulu, and a 3rd season is slated to go into production, but unfortunately, production for that has been halted indefinitely. So hopefully, at some point, we'll see a 3rd season of The Orville, but I can't guarantee it. But I will say that if you watch every episode of The Orville, you will find it to be a rewarding time.
Yeah, it's very similar, like we were both saying, where it's very similar to the
Seth MacFarlane is really the genius behind The Orville. He had once wanted to be the new writer on Star Trek. He had proposed a show to CBS, and they turned him down, believe it or not. So The Orville is basically his attempt to do Star Trek once Star Trek turned him down to do a show. He was in an episode of Next Generation.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All the new Star Treks, they just keep trying to amp the drama and amp the action, and it's just, The Orville doesn't do that. Yeah.
But again, I don't
know
anything about. I know people who really like the new Star Trek, so I guess to each their own. I'm glad that you're watching them. I think in general right now, I just find watching science fiction to be very comforting, because it reminds you that reality is subjective, that anything is possible. Or maybe it's in science fiction when the world goes upside down in a science fictional universe. The heroes always struggle to find a way of setting things right, and often do. But I don't know what it is. I feel like because maybe we're living in a science fictional universe ourselves right now, it feels like one of the most apropos genres. What do you feel about science fiction right now? How is it? Is it helping you escape things, or do you find it makes you think about things right now?
Yeah, it's always been an escape. I mean, I think that it's like a modern kind of fantasy world. I mean, as a kid, I like science fiction over fantasy, and same kind of thing.
That's a good point. There really is a line between the two, and some people don't really understand. Fantasy is about magic. There's no. Orson Scott Card wrote a really good description, and I forgot about the difference between sci-fi and fantasy. Do you remember what it was, or how he would define it yourself?
No, but
science fiction emanates out of what we can do, with one exception. It's the best I can do on such short notice with so little coffee in me. I will recommend on Amazon another show called Counterpart with J.K. Simmons. That was a pretty engaging science. It's 2 seasons. I think I told you about it, so I know you heard about it because we discussed it a few months ago.
Don't remember.
J.K. Simmons has a counterpart. There's a parallel universe.
Really? You told me about that?
Yes, I did.
That sounds interesting. I don't remember at all. Counterpart? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I will
warn you that the alternative universe actually has experienced a virus. So you get to see what social distancing looks like in a science fiction show. It's very good. It does come to an end, meaning like when you get to the last episode, it all adds up. Other science fiction shows very quickly I can mention that I've watched Man in the High Castle, available on Amazon. Most of it is good. I do not feel very happy with the way the show ended. And unfortunately, it peaks in season 1. And there's 4 seasons. I'm a big fan of. Have you seen Man in the High Castle before I go to the next?
Yes, I've seen Man in the High Castle.
What was your take on that show?
That's another one where like the first season is spectacular, and then after that, it's like I don't need the rest of this.
Yeah, it just doesn't really go any. I would watch it to the end because I enjoyed it, but yeah, it's a toughie.
I watched all the seasons, and it's just I don't know. The first season's all you need on that.
Well, I enjoyed the other seasons, just not as much as the first. Handmaid's Tale, I'm enjoying that. I hope there's going to be a new season coming up soon. Any other sci-fi for you that you want to recommend?
The only one I want to mention is Mr. Robot.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things.
Which is a fun like a show about a computer hacker. It's like the guy, the creator, Sam Esmail.
Rami Malek is the star of that.
He's the star
in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. He was in Bohemian Rhapsody probably because he was in the show. But Mr. Robot's a great show. I mean, it's a fun show. I mean, if you like computers, it's a fun show. I would definitely call it science fiction because it's like some of the stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it is science fiction. Actually, I think it is.
I hear Mr. Robot sounds science fictional to me. So those are some. If you like science fiction comedy, I would recommend Red Dwarf. Made in England between the 80s, 90s, and the early aughts. It is like a funny version of the English sci-fis I'd been talking about. It's 4 guys in a giant space ark by themselves.
Hey, Chris.
And each episode is conceptual, kind of like the Orville.
Hey, Chris, we're way over time, but
I have that was kind of behind the curtain there.
I have this idea about like a type of science fiction that I really like I've told you about this called bonkers sci-fi. Can I talk about it?
Well, why don't do you want to do that in a separate episode and we'll end this on TV and then we'll come back with another one on bonkers sci-fi?
Okay. We'll do an episode on my crazy idea about bonkers sci-fi. Okay.
So those are some of our sci-fi picks. If you guys, can they leave comments below?
Yeah, leave a comment.
Okay, so if there's a sci-fi show that we mentioned you like or don't like, please mention. If there's something we overlook, please mention. We're bored. We love sci-fi. So please, we need something to watch. I'm Chris.
Randall.
Be well, be safe, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.